Hey everyone, today we're clearing up everything you need to know about how to grocery shop effectively and how to read nutrition labels so you know what you're eating is going to be supportive of your goals. The first thing you want to focus on is always eating whole foods. If you think about it, whole foods aren't the things that are going to have nutrition labels. You know, if you're in the produce section, all of your veggies, your fruits, your grains will have nutrition labels, but your sweet potatoes, you know, all of that, you're not going to have a nutrition label to read. So that's going to clear up a lot of the headache first off. So when you're building your meals for the week, we want you, just like the perfect plate, to base your meals around whole foods. Your carb, your fat, your protein, all coming from whole ingredients. And then spice up your meals with some of the fun stuff, right? Those are going to be our sauces, our soups maybe. Those are going to be the things that we're going to really dive into reading those nutrition labels properly today. So how to read nutrition labels. The first thing you're always going to start with when you read a nutrition label is not any of the numbers. You're going to go straight down to the ingredients, okay? There's two rules I want you to follow. One is the less ingredients, the better. If it has a lot of complicated things or things you can't pronounce, then we're going to skip it, right? We want to make sure that whatever's in this nutrition or whatever's in this food we're going to consume is mostly still coming from whole ingredients, and that we can pronounce a lot of the ingredients, not a lot of fake artificial things, artificial sweeteners and stuff. So this nutrition label is off of this split pea soup from Trader Joe's. The ingredients are great. There's quite a few of them, but they're all from real foods. We have split green peas, onions, celery, carrots, and a bunch of spices. So that's going to be really good. It checks my box for ingredients. That's the first thing you check. There's a bunch of crap in there. Just don't even look at the rest of the nutrition label. The second thing, and this may surprise you, is I want you to look at the serving size. The serving size is found right underneath the nutrition facts, because before I get into reading how many calories, how much fat's in there, I need to know how much of that food is it talking about, right? If it's talking about 1 tablespoon, it's totally different than if it's talking about 1 cup. So for this soup, I know my serving size is 1/2 a cup, and per container, there's 2, okay? So I know I can have half of this with all of these calories, okay? If I double it and eat the whole thing, then I know what I'm looking at, right? So that's really, really important. Know how much it's giving you the information on. So if the serving size checks off, then we're gonna look at the calories. Now calories come down to what your goals are. If you're trying to lose weight, you may try to find something that's a little bit lower calorie if you're gonna combine it with a bunch of other foods because you wanna be in your calorie deficit for the day. If you're trying to gain weight, you're looking for a food that's dense in calories, right? So if I'm looking at this calorie number and it says 130 and 0 calories from fat, you know, that's pretty good. If I have, that means I can eat this whole container for 250 calories, which is probably not even going to be my full meal, right? Then I'm going to have maybe a slice of bread on the side or whatever. So that's really good because then you know how many calories you're looking at for that entire meal, especially if you're combining it with other foods. Next, third or fourth, that's when we're going to start looking at these macros. Okay, so remember, for 1/2 a cup, this is what this says. So 0 grams of fat. Okay, we like fat, so that's not going to bother us too much. 24 grams of carbohydrates, 9 grams of protein. So if it's a food like a soup or something, I'm always going to look at protein. More protein the better, right? So it's great. I love that it has 9 grams. That means if I eat this whole container, I'm getting 18 grams of protein. But that also means I'm getting about 50 grams of carbohydrates. Not a bad thing, but I just need to be aware that that's going to take up a big chunk of my carbohydrates for the day. So I want to make sure I probably wouldn't have a piece of bread with that, right? Then all of a sudden we're almost 100 grams of carbs for one meal. So being balanced about that, right? Remembering your perfect plate portions and looking at, okay, 24 grams is a good for 1 serving. That's great. But if I eat the whole thing, it's going to be closer to 2 servings of how many carbs I want in each meal. Really important. The carbs are broken down into fiber and sugar, right? So that's contributing to this total grams of carbohydrates. Fiber's great. We've talked about that. That's going to keep you full. So I love that there's 7 grams of fiber in that. 4 grams of sugar, right? This is where people get thrown off. They think, oh my gosh, there's sugar in this, it's bad, right? Well, I already checked my ingredients. There's no added sugar, so that means this sugar is probably just coming from the vegetables. Carrots naturally have sugar in them, right? So that's a really important thing. If you look in your ingredients and there's no sugar, but it reads that there's sugar in the nutrition label, you know it's just coming from a natural source. If you come and it says that there's 20 grams of sugar, that's when we want to double check those ingredients and see where that's coming from, okay? Another thing to note is the sodium on here is 670 milligrams. That's pretty high. We want to shoot for about less than 2,000 per day. It's not going to kill you. It's just something to note that if you feel bloated later, that's probably why. And if I eat this whole container, 1,200 milligrams of sodium, I'm definitely going to feel it later, okay? So it's not a bad thing, especially because I know it's coming from sea salt, which is good for your body, but you just want to be aware of what you're consuming. Another question that I get a lot about is the trans fat and saturated fat, which one's the bad one, or about cholesterol. Here's the thing, if you checked your ingredients and it's coming from real food, you don't need to worry about that, right? There's not going to be sneaky fats in there because you already checked that there's not hydrogenated oils or anything fake and artificial in there. And that's why we always check your ingredients first. So overall, remember, no matter what your goals are, we always check the ingredients to make sure that our labels are full of whole foods, things we can pronounce. We check our serving size so we know what we're looking at when we get into the nutrition facts, and then we make sure that the macronutrients fit our goals. Okay, so happy shopping. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We're happy to help you read those. It's a little bit of trial and error, but we know that when you get the hang of it, it's going to make your life so much easier.